What's up and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. This is your host, Jonathan Gelner, and thank you so much for joining us today. This podcast is powered by Stick and Ball TV, the baseball and softball streaming platform. Stick and Ball TV is a baseball-focused streaming platform featuring the best coaches, players, and premium brands in baseball today. Stick and Ball TV creates and curates baseball training content, on-brand partner content, and original lifestyle content, and publishes globally across their web, iOS, and Android apps. Check them out at stickandball.tv or on the Stick and Ball TV mobile app. On today's show, we're back with Dave Turgeon, National Head Coach of IMG Academy. If you've never gotten the chance to hear Dave speak, then buckle up, because today we're talking about ramping up skill work, respecting reps, individualizing parts of practice, and how we can train decision points. You're going to love this episode with Dave Turgeon. When we get back to the preseason, let's say you guys have a month or two to prepare. What have you decided to, or I guess you guys as an organization decided to do to make sure that stuff happens? So you talked about ramping up. What are some different practical things that you guys are doing? Getting hitters ready with game-like reps. I know you're a big proponent of that, trying to match the game. And so just if you could open up some of the things that you guys are doing on a daily basis on the field, and maybe let us steal some stuff.
So when we ramp up, so when they get back, we will ramp up specifically by skill work, infield play, outfield play, hitting, base running, segmented, versions of the game. Right. And before we, and so part of that ramp up will be in those areas I just mentioned, gradually adding volume on a daily basis, and when we feel like the group is ready, and, a lot of times opening day determines, whether they're ready or not, we got to do some things. Generally within at the beginning of that second week, we start hitting that team fundamental team practice stuff where we're trying to integrate all the stuff that we've been doing, speed it up on them, tempo, demands of the game, tempo of practice, trying to match the demands of the game, all of those things. And so bringing that together, you have, you might have a 5-week period, which isn't much, especially with guys on the mound, and, it is, you're getting into February, and it's still early in the year. And so you got to be careful, but that's really the process. And there's no set way of doing that. It is art, man, because each group you have shows up differently. I'm hoping that, the group that I have is extremely motivated and conscientious about, what they have in front of them in this upcoming season. Many of them have a great opportunity in front of them. To up their stock in the draft, some maybe to get on the radar of the draft, some to prepare to go play in the SEC or the ACC, which is, a lot faster and stronger and, better than the league we're in right now, so hopefully those guys, they understand, what's at stake. I'm not, clearly I don't feel the need to coach energy at this level. These guys are pretty darn motivated that way.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, there's the ramp up is kind of crucial, and the more they show up ready when they come back from break, I think that's really going to dictate the speed of the group.
Sure. No. And, I'm a huge proponent of iron sharpens iron. So they're seeing guys at their position that are just as good or better than them every single day. And so that's just going to make them even better. Have you taught them how to respect the rep yet?
Yeah, I think, and I don't have my spring group. I think that's a daily occurrence. I always introduce the concept. I always ask them at the end of the day how we did with that concept of respecting our reps.
Can you explain it to the guests who may be hearing you for the first time, what that means?
So honestly, I think it goes back to a story of a competitive environment we had going with the Pirates, and we had a head-to-head competition on defensive side, and one of them just threw a ball away on a routine ground ball. And I asked the manager who was running the drill, I said, what do you think happened there? And he said he just didn't respect that rep. And, I just liked what that meant. And it really was about the mind and focus and intent of that rep that he took as to why he lost that competition. And as I looked at it, I thought, well, it has everything to do with skill, acquisition and guys improving and getting better on a daily basis. The more we do things with focus and intent, the more we can improve and the more we can have confidence because our skill sets are getting higher. And, confidence, as and you've been in this thing long enough, is not something that you can give a player. It's something that has to be earned. You can encourage them and push them, but they have to acquire those skills to acquire that confidence to play this thing at a higher level. And that comes through purposeful reps. And so the concept of, respecting the rep has been big. And that goes for coaches as well, to respect, the prep, to create an environment where players have to respect the rep. And I think, creating an environment of challenge and some stress and some, competitiveness and all of those things, without telling them they have to respect every rep. And I think once we hit them with the concept and so, I start asking, all right, guys, what do you have on the practice today? What do you have on the practice today? What's something that we did really well today? What's a way ahead? I've had kids, right out of the gates that I felt like we respected a lot of reps today. And I don't always agree with them because I would be, I want them to understand what a standard is. But there are times too, when they've said we didn't respect as many reps where I disagreed and said, well, that's interesting. I said, you're a tough critic. I said, but I felt like we respected a fair amount of reps today. We may not have gotten the results that we like, but I felt there was a focus and intent that was there for a greater, amount of the time. So, that's the evaluation process too. And you're allowing them to speak, expose their thoughts of where they're at and how they see this thing. And, that concept obviously is as simple as it is pretty meaningful, and, it has been for me. And I do make it clear to the players that, the secret to success, the secret sauce is always going to be in that work.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, the older I get and the longer I do this, the more I realize that is an elite skill that can absolutely be trained. And,
Amen to that.
I posed this question to our group earlier this year. And I said, how many of you guys would like to get better instantly? And hands shot up around the room. And I said, how you do that? You know how you do that? And, you give the awkward silent pause and then you go, you win every pitch or you're present every single pitch. And I was like, if you can do that, you instantly become better just because
no doubt about it.
There, you're present and you're respecting those reps. And the guys that do that, it doesn't matter what level you're at, they stand out. And I love hearing
they
that.
sure do.
You've got elite players all over the field, but the guys that are communicating on each pitch and really locking it in and have that joy that comes with that. And I could not agree more with that statement, respecting the reps and just focusing and trying to win every single pitch.
No doubt about it. Yeah, the ability to show guys how to work and how to be present is a huge task. And young minds, young guys, young boys, undeveloped minds. They don't have a ton of life dirt in their cleats. They have a lot of different social media stuff. They have so much different stuff going on in their brains and on their plates. That's a big challenge, but it's fun. It's fun to figure it out, man.
No doubt. So one of the other things that, I think that you do a really good job of is trying to translate what happens in a game. And, you are really into skill acquisition And so I'd love to hear just some different concepts or drills that you like, or different things. I know we talked on the last podcast, which was now a couple of years ago, which is crazy to think. But how can we do better drills to help transfer the game to our drill sets?
So here's where I've kind of evolved on skill acquisition and block training versus random training, and zoo and jungle. And I think part of this is the level I'm at, which has brought me a more depth to my coaching than I had thought or imagined. Okay. I feel like you need to know your stuff better at this level. I think you need to digest it down even further for these players. So it requires you knowing things at a deeper level, in my opinion. That's what I have found. Can I help any level of player in a way, and meet him where he's at, give him what he needs in a way that he can understand it, show it to him, have him experience it, and help him do it. I would be honest with you, it's easier in pro ball than it is here. And I have to be aware of a whole nother, skill sets and backgrounds and socioeconomic, languages, country, all of that stuff. So this has been awesome, with that. But that said, the whole thing on random versus block, how I've evolved with that, I've just seen a lot of value in block training that I hadn't seen at the upper levels, because I've realized that within block training, I'm not talking about shooting free throws. All right. It might be taking ground balls, which, yes, he may know the ground ball's coming to him, but you can create so much variability in speed and angles and bounces that, the variability is often enough challenge for them to acquire some skills, rather than speeding it up with, decision points and randomizing it already. Right. So I found that there's huge value in the block training and knowing when to blend in decision points in the randomness of it. At this level has been very good. And I honestly believe that this is definitely art. And I think that the block training and the individual skill work is important, creating that confidence for them to be able to now go from chess to checkers, where, you have speed of ball, speed of runner. Where am I going on this ball to my left, ball to my right? Speed of the runner at first, speed of the runner at home. Ball hits me. Where am I going with this? Ball's in the gap. Where are we going? Just the movements and the anticipation of the 15 seconds between pitches. Who's covering? Curveball, you got it. Fastball, I got it. There's just all of that. So I found that the players having a skill set that is solid allows them to be free to think and run around, because they have a certain confidence level already with that. I've found that there's a lot more blend in my work day, with that stuff. There has to be. I mean, they can't just be, absolutely. There has to be an element of feel good in success of fielding and throwing accurately and barreling balls up consistently before you then speed things up for them and make it more like, the game. So. Sure.
No, I'm right there with you. And I just like with anything, I think that I'm trying to be square right in the middle of there's a time and place for most everything.
Yeah, balance is good, man.
Yeah. Well, I've learned from experience. So it's you throw them at the wolves, and it's like, it's so stressful that they're fight or flight the whole time, or freeze. Right. And they're not getting any better. But then we also have the kids who have I don't want to say mastered, but mastered basic fundamentals of, hey, here's how we field a regular rolled ground ball to your forehand. It's like, okay, now we start to learn where those challenge points are. And I think that's the art that you're talking about, and the master coaches are really good about being able to do that, within the team setting. And I think that that's really hard. And you mentioned even having, 25 guys in your group that you're trying to even with the different skill levels, even though they're all
Right.
considered elite in their age group, there's still different skill levels within that and different challenge points that you can have. But any advice on coaches who, I think that this term individualize gets thrown around so often.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's almost an insurmountable challenge if we try and literally individualize every single aspect of a player's day. You guys have an entire group and staff to be able to do a lot of that. But any advice for, guys like myself or high school coaches who, like we have 50 hitters and so on and so forth, but how we can be able to take the concept of what we do in practice and then individualize it as much as possible, or at least parts of it, if that makes sense. Sorry if that was a lot of words.
No, everyone has a challenge too, in that what resources do you have? Like what facilities do you have? And, I can speak to where I am of, there's when we have a practice day, I might have a period of early work. I have a 45-minute block. And if I'm doing defensive work that day, I'll bring out 2 guys or 3 guys, and we will drill down on what they need. Generally, it's making this play, that play. It might be a pivot. It might be the backhand. It might be the slow roller. It might one aspect of their game they don't have. Right. So you're individualizing things. It might be clock. It could be a number of things, rhythm and timing into the ball, hop reading. So on the offensive side, and so I might keep them early. All right. We go out there, we do a very crisp, we talk about it. All right. This is how we're going to do it. This is what we're looking for. Let's go. Let's go see if we can make it happen. And I love that one-on-one attention anyway, because the walls are down. They're very open. Absolutely. And, it's really cool. They feel cared for. And I found that you can do a ton of good stuff in a shorter period of time because they're not as self-conscious within a group,
Sure.
Or, if we have an open-ended practice that day, I may keep 2 hitters. And, we're working on for you, it's being fastball ready, and spitting on the spin early. Or for this guy, it's, we're working on some fundamental of staying stacked to change his bat path. So we're going to do that through approach and high tee and 4-seam right off the machine at the top of the zone, all externally focused to make his body make an adjustment with his path or some individual thing that he needs. But there's always the time of the individual of this thing is that we do it usually before practice or at the end of practice with
Sure.
one or 2 or 3 max. And then within the practice, generally, I want to see guys competing game speed, game tempo, and in BP, those are very purposeful reps as well. Again, they get their feel-good stuff done on their own early, whatever their routine is, so that they can come out. And I really want to see them practice hitting, not swinging and executing.
No doubt. Well, that's really cool. So with that too, there's just so many different things that go into being a good player. And, I really think that this generation, we are extremely skilled. Like I think that they have a ton of talent, but we're missing the presence piece or the thinking between pitches piece. Mm-hmm. And, with my generation, it's kind of the gap in between. Like I didn't have iPhones whenever I was growing up, but I had them in college. And so it's like, okay, so I was kind of that transition period. Here they see whether or not it's good or bad. It could be argued, but they see a ton of different things to be able to do for training. Right. But for me, I feel like I'm in tune with, things that are going on. And I feel like this group is needing more of the game planning and approach and pre-pitch routines, how to think the game within the game.
100% agree.
And so like, tell us, they play a lot of games, but they're not thinking about the game.
Correct.
Within the game. So tell us a little bit about how we can do a better job, because here's my challenge for the coaches that are listening too. We can gripe about it, or we can use it as our competitive advantage, right?
No doubt
And
about it.
so we can say, oh, the kids these days, well, they don't have this. Well, I want to take that challenge on of no, well, our kids will. And maybe your kids won't because you're not going to go over it with them. But since our kids have that piece or don't have that piece, we're going to teach it to them. And that's going to be our competitive advantage. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on how I know it all comes for me, it all comes back to focusing on the pitch. What's going on? Take a deep breath. Like, what's your focal point? What's going on? And then between pitches, it's like, what's the situation? What are the outs? What's the speed of the runner? What's the situation in the game? What inning is it? Things like that. And what do we know about the hitter? What's the count? All of those things. But when you throw it at them, it's a lot. So how do we simplify it and start to build up a foundation and layers on top of that so we can help them to be more coaches on the field?
That's an awesome topic, and so now it becomes, how are we training our decision points, and the fundamentals of the game? How can we blend this together? How can we make it demanding of them, and we're developing their skills in their minds at the same time? I will tell you that my number one favorite drill has become 21 outs. We used to call it 27 outs, but in high school it's 21 outs, right? And so what makes this so challenging is, for those of you guys, if you haven't done it, it's, they have to make 21 successive plays in a row of executing routine plays or fundamentals. And if they mess a play up, it's back to zero. So you all of a sudden get to 19. All of a sudden, a guy kicks the ball because we got close to 21. He got a little tight and overtried, and back to zero. So the words they never want to hear: back to zero, right? So it's a unbelievable exercise, and this is, in my opinion, why it makes it so challenging. Is that the game has a way of one play leading to the next play. A guy hits a base hit. You use a runner on first. Now you have double play in order. Right-handed hitter up. So you have this set of plays that could happen with a runner on first and nobody out or one out. There's a rhythm and flow to this thing. With 21 outs, each situation is unique. And so you're continuing to not allow for the flow of the game to where they can go to the next play in their mind. You're throwing another play at them, and it's a completely different deal. This play, there's a runner on first, one out. The last play, there was nobody on, nobody out, right-handed hitter, and a 4-6 runner up because I'm working a clock. I got my assistant coach, with a clock because we're working internal clock off this play. Now we got a runner on first and one out, and now I bang a ball in the gap. And now where are we going? How many decision points, are involved on that one rep? That's a lot. Everyone's moving to spots. Everyone's got a job to do. And so you do that and you speed it up on them, and you're training, you're training their minds. You're training being present. If they aren't, they lose the situation. And if there's pitchers off to the side and they're also involved in this thing, one of my go-tos to get them back to zero is I ask a specific pitcher, what is the situation I just called out? And if he doesn't know it, group goes back to zero, so you're teaching them how to pay attention and watch and be present at the same time. You're doing stuff at game speed, you're doing clockwork, and you can add as many layers to it as you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just, for me, it's the players love it. Like it's so fast paced, and it's almost like you hear soccer coaches talk about small-sided games all the time. This would be an example of that in the baseball game. So, because it's so fast-paced, you don't have to wait for a pitcher to warm up. You don't have to wait for balls and strikes. But you can add as many layers and as many things onto it, base runners and what's the count and like what's going on and communication in between pitches and everything. So you could almost do it every single day, and it would be really good. Like I don't know.
No doubt.
There's so many layers you could do that I don't.
There is so many layers to it. You can, we even have so we'll do dueling 21 outs if I have enough for 2 shells. Guy, they just got to 14 straight on the 15th.
Wow.
flip it. Other team goes, see if they can beat, 13, get to 14. Now, we'll tell you, if you're really demanding in this drill, I've had it take as long as an hour and 5 minutes. And you're training their emotions. They get frustrated. They start getting pissed at their teammates. They start getting, pissed at themselves. They start, you're really evoking emotions, which so does the game. And right. So can they get those things under control? Can they encourage their teammate instead of chastise them? Can they dial it down themselves to get to the next play? And it's all about emotion. And you can turn up the volume or you can turn down the volume. And you get the fungo in your hand. I've done it with a machine. But because you can really manipulate balls to the parts of the outfield where you really want them. But
sure,
it's a tremendous tool. And like I said, there are so many different versions of it that I use. And my goal is to frustrate them. My goal is to evoke those tough emotions that the game brings, and then let's see how they handle them. Could they resettle in? Did they settle back in and get to the next play? Can they do it? Sometimes it takes groups longer. You get some guys. There's a lot going on, man. They have a lot going on.
Yeah, no doubt. I just love it because let the game teach the game, and
beautiful.
We can filter them in the right process. But other than that, Dave, like man, every time we talk, I learn something, and I'm so grateful for your friendship and in a way, a mentorship.
Back at you, man.
All the things that you've done for our game. But I do want to ask you one question before you go, and that's, if there are younger coaches listening and you wanted to impart some wisdom upon them of, things that I wish that I had known at 18, or, hey, this is what, if you want to be a good coach, it boils down to this, or just anything that if they're hearing you for the first time and maybe the only time in your life and your career, what do you want to leave them with?
So I think of that. It makes me think of the story. I was working in the Dominican Republic for about 5 straight years. Finally, in year number 4, and so what I did during that process is I stayed at a hotel in Santo Domingo, and I'd have someone would pick me up and drive me to the academy every day. It took about 45 minutes, 50 minutes. We'd drive down these roads, and it's a couple country roads, and show up at the academy. Did that for like 4 years, and I decided, I want to drive. Let's start driving the Dominican Republic. Feeling pretty confident, and so I fly in, and they actually have a thing where my rental car they deliver it to the hotel, and I go, and I'm like, nice, got my rental car, get in the rental car. Now, keep in mind how many trips. And when I go down there once a month, it's for 5-6 days. So, and I don't know how many 100 times I've been to and from the academy being driven. So I get the rental car. I think where this is going. I get in the car. I immediately have no idea where I'm going because for 5 years I had a GPS driving me there. Whoever my guy was driving me there, and I wasn't paying attention. But I was getting to the spot every day, efficiently, consistently, no problem. But I had no idea how to get there. So I get lost, and I got to go back. Somehow I find my way back to the hotel an hour and a half later. It's very upsetting being lost in a foreign country in a car. And so, I go and I get a map from the guy at the front desk, and he works me through this thing on a map. So I find my way to the academy through the map, and I find my way home through the map. And now I truly learned how to get to and from the academy. And I have just been and so I tell this story to the coaches down there who I'm, part of my job is coaching these coaches. And I said, man, I don't want to be this coach or this player, GPS coach, where, I'm constantly telling players the answers. And they look to me for the answers and say, what am I doing? And I just give them an answer. And they never truly own what they're doing because you never ask them what you think you're doing in order to really, truly learn your way. And I will tell you that the question as a weapon is the number one weapon that we have in order to include them in their development. And if you truly want your players to learn and be able to be baseball players and adjust and problem solve on the field, you have to allow them to fail and ask them, what do you got? What do you think? Take me through that. Oh, try this next time. Without giving them the answer all the time, without making them completely dependent upon your stuff. Because, look, let's face it. I mean, coaching is fun, and you can easily fix every one of their things with a quick something, and you get your little dopamine hit, and then he feels good and you feel good. And instead of allowing him to be frustrated and figure it out, you're creating his own GPS system by helping him and allowing him to fail and then figuring it out and watching. I really saw early in my career, I was one of them GPS coaches, who was so willing to just fix, because I thought, that's what good coaches do. And I don't really believe that any longer. I believe that, we have to allow to grow our players. They need to figure out how to play, what they're doing, know themselves, how to make adjustments for themselves. That's what a baseball player is, and I think a master coach can kind of, he can take them through and help them navigate without just giving them the dope all the time. Back off, let them figure it out, let them fail, let them come to you. God forbid they have to come to you. You got to run to them at first. But I trust me, that's part of my process and my coaching testimony. I'll tell you, I was guilty of all of that in a huge way. But there are times I bet some of my players are going, what is he doing down there? Is he doing anything down there? And the truth is, the value of watching is the number one value, so don't be afraid to watch, and don't be afraid to walk away from a bad delivery, a bad play, or a bad swing, because they're going to have to figure it out. And when they come to you, they want to be coached. And you got them. And be ready.
Thank you for listening to Ahead of the Curve. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review wherever you are listening. I also wanted to remind you that you can find the video portion at the AOTC channel on stickandball.tv. Have a great week.